So Fanatics has announced that they are back in New York City in late June of this year. I'm going to make the case that rather than this being the start of something big, it's actually more like closing the book on a weird chapter in this company's history with events in sports cards, and more like a last dance. I also have a story in the middle of this that shows an example of Fanatics having some unchecked power on its platforms like Fanatics Live. We have a breaker that was removed from the platform without an appeals process. I think it's important that you know what happened because this is a microcosm of what's happening in the wider sports card market with Fanatics. Again, it's unchecked power. All right, so here's the challenges. New York City lost 13 to 15 million bucks. Two key employees were fired. EJ Ferrer was brought on, very excited, moved and everything, and he got fired like a month ago. Now, that could be due to performance. He's not the only employee. There were two key events employees that got fired. EJ was the most public. Maybe this was performance, and maybe he just didn't sell the spaces he needed to sell to vendors, and maybe he's a reason that Fanatics events are underperforming. I'm not there. I'm not in HR. All I know is that there was a lot of hoorah around this hire. He was very excited and moved, and it didn't seem to work out. And for another employee, it didn't either, which is strange. I've actually reached out to EJ 2 or 3 times because I wanted to get his side of things, even anonymously. But to his credit, he has not responded to me, and obviously I have to respect any NDAs that are in place with him and his former company. But it'd be an interesting story to understand whether this was a performance-based fire or if this was more to do with the events not succeeding, and therefore this is an operational fire. Very, very big difference between the two. All right, so we've also got Fanatics Fest Orlando. That was canceled. Fanatics Fest LA has been postponed. The hurricane was an interesting excuse for Orlando. I've seen the internal emails. They look more and more desperate leading up to the event to try to get this event space sold. I don't have the prices of the square footage and all that, but I've been in sales and I can understand the language in an email. And it didn't seem like it was working out. I think the hurricane was like, it's Thursday night and there's a wedding you're going to go to as a guest, and you don't want to go to this wedding on Saturday. It sucks. You don't even like the couple, but you got to. You're kind of like, you've been friends in the past, and then your kid gets sick on Friday morning, and you're like, yes. So I don't want to make light. I mean, the hurricane's a horrible thing, but I think it was honestly just kind of the perfect timing, perfect excuse to put the nail in the coffin in Orlando. I don't expect it will happen again. I think that they're probably going to focus all efforts like Star Wars on the front shields, like focus everything on New York and try to survive. Now, here's my big takeaway as a former consultant about this whole Fanatics events mess, okay? One of two things happened. This is either a logistics challenge, meaning they are having a hard time getting the right people, selling the right space, getting the vendors lined up, getting the people to show up that they need. Or it's just a simple situation that they didn't want to accept the losses. They didn't want to accept the bad PR of a bad event. I think if you look at Michael Rubin's DNA as a promoter and throughout his career, this seems very likely as well. Like, he doesn't want like this little black eye of Orlando. He wants every event to be the biggest, the best, and to succeed. And this wasn't going to fit that narrative. So maybe it's both, to be honest. Maybe it is operational and it's logistical. Either way, that's pointing to something that I have a major problem with at this company. And that is, where is the COO? What is happening at this company in terms of organization, process, best practices, Six Sigma principles, just general good operational, executional know-how? It's not there. It seems like they're loaded up in terms of strategy expertise. They've got an ex-McKinsey BCG guy running sports cards and Jeff Gordon. They've got several other people on the board that have this experience. Where is the operational guy? Like, every company's got to have one, because I know Michael Rubin's not that style of CEO, so he's got to have somebody like that running these events. So before I dive in more into what they need to do with Fanatics Fest to actually make it a success and not fail this time around, and what I expect to happen in terms of predictions, I've actually got a really scary story about a breaker that was immediately chopped off the Fanatics Live platform without an appeals process. I'm going to share a video right now. He's going to tell you firsthand what he experienced and how he tried to get an appeal and how it didn't work out. I have also reached out to the people involved, and their response to me has been a very professional, we don't discuss these matters externally. I respect that, but what you're about to see is another example of what's happening with Fanatics. It's this power. It's unchecked power, like an emperor. And even worse, it's like an emperor that doesn't have the ability to organize itself into a coherent operational machine. That's scary. It's like a bully on the playground, beating kids up, kicking things around, kicking rocks, breaking the swings. And he's looking around wondering, like, why is nobody having fun at recess? That's exactly what's happening here. So listen to this story. I'll meet you on the other side of it.
In January, I joined Fanatics Live and gave him everything I had. Spending my own money on events, breaking every single day, Monday to Friday, and promoting their brand on social media. As a service-disabled veteran, I gave everything I had for this brand. But despite my efforts, I have been blacklisted on their social media, as well as being ignored. When I raised concerns about unmet promises, I was not only brushed off, but they cared more about their image than delivering on their word and contract. Then what came next is my suspension. They claimed it was because of a joke I made about the David Adams Lou Gehrig bounty on Bowman Chrome, which personally I disagree with and I have an opinion. No harm, no disrespect, as I've spent thousands of dollars with David Adams, I've been on their podcast, and I'm friends with their breakers. A second reason was me talking with my customers about a 577 spot break on a box of Mercury which consists of 8 cards. And of course, without naming anyone, the Fanatics Live team assumed that I was talking about a specific breaker that they cared to defend more than the actual truth. And the third reason, one that sits close to me, is a customer of mine commented in the chat that Fanatics Live isn't doing anything for veterans on Veterans Day. And the quote was, "Fanatics Live must hate veterans." Now, that was a joke. We all took it as a joke because we're grown-ups, but it was taken the wrong way by the Fanatics Live team. They took more offense to that statement than I did. At the start of my 30-day suspension, which happened right after the Zoom call of me being told I was suspended, they immediately deleted my current stream that was live. Not only without notice, but was calculated to include over $10,000 worth of break spots that have already been sold were refunded to customers and came out of my bank account. And their claim, it was an oversight and they will be refunding that money back to me so I'm not out over $10,000 by mistake. To include with my suspension on Fanatics Live, I have been told that Top's direct account has suspended me as well. This wasn't a business mistake. This was a targeted attack on a breaker that speaks the truth and warns every other breaker to not speak a word.
All right, so that's rough. This is a long-term breaker making money for the platform, helping them grow the platform as an early adopter. And there's just no good operational process for this. It's kind of like, we're right, you're wrong, kick rocks. There's no third-party arbiter. There's no crowdsourced feedback. There's no tripwires that were initiated during this live. It's just kind of like, we think we saw something we disagree with. You're gone, cut it off. Shipping to customers is impacted. Customer service is impacted. And again, I've reached out to the people involved. Their comment is essentially, what happens between us and breakers stays between us and breakers. So it's that Las Vegas mentality, which is a little bit how Fanatics is run. I have to say, they are a judge, jury, and executioner. And if they really want to thrive in this breaking space and beat Whatnot and TikTok and others, they've got to have better logistics. Like, they don't even know where some of their most important cards have gone. There's no person who has that information that can reveal it if a certain amount of time goes by. That's crazy to me. And back to the COO stuff. I know Jeff Gordon is sort of like the strategy guy for sports cards. And believe me, I was a management consultant. I know what strategy people are like. They're up here in the clouds, these great ideas on a whiteboard, and then they want the minions to go do the work and execute the plan. The problem is the plan here is not getting executed. One perfect example of this was just this ridiculously Bush League dinner. they had out in Macau, and they allowed cameras. He was sharing sensitive information about Fanatics. They let people film it and be like, "What's up? Look at me." It was unbelievable. Like, I've never seen a dinner like that. So unprofessional, especially since Jeff Gordon is an ex-consultant, from BCG and McKinsey. Like, you gotta know better than that. You're used to working with clients and government and sensitive data. That is scary that Fanatics doesn't have something in place to stop that dinner. Honestly, if I was Michael Rubin, I would fire Jeff Gordon tomorrow, and I would get an operational CMO. I'd replace the strategy guy. Your strategy here, it's set. Michael Rubin is a very good strategist. He's got a good gut feeling for things. He bought Tops. He's doing it the right way for Fanatics in terms of making money. So I don't think he needs to worry about this really expensive, incompetent strategy guy at the head of sports cards, because you need an operational CEO. Jeff Gordon should be entering breaks anonymously. Wear a hoodie. Do it through your wife's account, your kid's account, or whatever. He should be entering breaks, watching what's actually happening on these platforms. He should be doing breaking, like with somebody and partnering them. He's never been on a stream. He's not even on social media. I doubt he even understands problems like the one I just presented in the middle of this video. That is a massive problem. All good executives get on the ground. When I worked at Staples in strategy, the CEO would be there working in stores at back to school time to understand the customer. Jeff Gordon's not doing that. This dinner that he conducted is a representation of that behavior. It's Bush League, it's unprofessional, and it also makes me think, if they are having operational challenges about organizing a dinner, and by the way, this dinner was with all the wrong people. It's with 20-something sports cards people that very few respect. Many of them are clowns. Many of them just flaunt their money and cards and don't really represent the actual collecting community. They encourage that behavior by bringing these 20 people together at this dinner. Again, further reinforcing my point that they don't understand the collector side of things. And it just shows you, like, this dinner failed, just like Fanatics Fest failed. And the only way to fix that is to get somebody that actually rolls up the sleeves and is operational. That is just so important. This is all going to fail without that cog in the wheel. All right, I'm going to land this plane. I'm going to predict a few things. I know before I said that Fanatics Fest may be canceled forever. I also did say New York could happen by hell or high water. It seems like they're going to expand it. It's going to be more expensive. My guess is they probably lose $20 million this time around. That's fine. All good book authors have lost leaders, and that's an effective strategy for a short-term period of time. But if you look at the margins of Fanatics, margins in clothing are tight, especially when you factor in the licensing costs. Margins in sports cards are tight when you factor in licensing costs. That's why you see Tops Now just going nuts. If I were them, I would just do a bunch of unlicensed Tops Now for, like, it could be anything. It's why I joked around that they should do an OnlyFans hobby box, because you're not gonna have to pay a lot for those licenses, and it will crank and add eight figures of revenue to the bottom line. But I'm not gonna rant about that on this video. I think the moral of the story here is Fanatics can't do this forever. They can't drop 25 mil and lose it and lose it and lose it and not execute horrible dinners and screw up the event space. They can't do this forever. 10xing the hobby, that's not going to happen anyway. That's a fake number. But if they want to double the hobby, which is a reasonable target, they have to be better at operating, and they can't be taking these losses. This event in New York has to go well, and I actually expect it will. But then what happens next? Can they actually operate a regional show successfully? They have not proven they can yet. So they've got one that they've done okay, and maybe they do it again okay. But what's next? Margins in clothes are thin, margins in cards are thin, and eventually this company needs to make money. They've got to make a profit so they can support the three pegs under it, the expensive gambling peg that's going to cost a shit ton of money to grow and operate, hear that word again, and then the other businesses, collect and so forth. So you've got to make a profitable parent company out of that. And if you've got just this operational screw-ups underneath it, it's a scary proposition. I don't know, hopefully some of the executives watch this video and take my advice, but I'd have a hard look at certain people in certain positions because I don't think they're the right people at this time in this company's trajectory. And I've just shown proof of that. Thanks, everyone.